guys.
In the middle.
All right. So, okay, welcome again. And we're going to start with our little, um, we're going to start with our, uh, sorry guys, let me just, all right. Anyway, we're going to start with this, right? So if you open the document earlier and you get a chance to download one of these links, you would have something like this, right? Some sort of installer that will allow you to install. And there's a couple of them. There's the map, and then there's map. I mean, a Mac, so we're gonna do the Mac one right now. But you can follow along on Windows. It doesn't matter what you have. uh, this means Mac OS, right? Apache, MySQL, PHP, MyAdmin. That's what this stands for, right? If it's Linux, it would be LAMP, LAMP. If it's Windows, is WAMP, right? So I kind of talked about that a little bit here. And it's important to know because that's what's commonly referred to, especially if you're working in a server environment, you're going to hear that all the time. Is that a WAMP or LAMP, right? And what does that mean? Is that running Windows or Mac or Linux or, and is it using Apache or something else? For our purposes, we're going to stick to Apache MySQL, right? In this case, it's not just MySQL, it's MariaDB, which is a version of MySQL or MySQL, an off-brand version, right? It's an open source version, but it's the exact same thing. So so that's what we'll be installing, right? And we need to install that in order to be able to operate a database. We need the software, right? Before we get to creating databases, we need to be able to store them, right? Before we get to even C++. So we're gonna install that real quick, and it's super easy. So you're just gonna, double click on your installer. I already installed mine. Let me find. Okay, here we go. You're gonna see Bitnami. You go through the installation process. Just keep it like that. You want to install everything you can, and it's gonna tell me that I've already installed it. So I am going to cancel this right now. Yes. And I'm going to go here. And I forgot where I installed it. You know what? Let's just do the installation real quick. Okay, so that way we can start from scratch. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to do the map stack, not the MAPP. This is Postgres, which we can get to another point. It's supposed to be more robust than MySQL, right? But we don't really need to do that right now. So okay, here's installer. Hey Andy, how are you? All right, so we're gonna go through the installer real quick. It's gonna tell you that. And then for the password, this is what I was telling you, right? Just so that we all remember what password we used, because I installed it last night and I couldn't remember the password for the life of me. And it's pretty important, so we're gonna use that. Okay, we can only use alphanumeric, so my pass. All right, my pass, right? And what I type in there, just so you guys can see it, is my pass, like that. Okay. Next, this is a port. Another port. Just you're going to default them, and we're gonna uncheck that, install it, and it's gonna take like 2 or 3 minutes to install. So while that's installing, let's talk about databases a little bit. So how familiar are you guys with databases in general? Anybody? Charles?
I mean, I think I made something like that one time.
Okay. Anybody else?
Not as far as like making them, but more like obviously like data input.
Okay,
I work obviously like security for a building. We do the access to cards. We have to create them with, you know, access restrictions and stuff like that for each member.
right, but you're using some sort of front end, right?
Yeah, the GUI.
All right, so what we're going to be doing right now is basically creating the container, right? The container of a database. And what you're using, right, what you're using to see where the data gets entered is, you know, that's called the front end. And then there's the back end, right? So we'll get to both, but back end, by the way, symbols is usually this one right here. So if you see this symbol, that means it's a database, right? And databases can be broken down into basically 4 different pieces. The database itself, right, which is can contain many tables and many fields and logic, right? And you know, tables, fields, and logic. So to give you guys an example of what a table looks like is this one, right here, right? We have students and we have classes, right? And databases work on the principle that information is related to one another, right? So a student can have classes, right? It's taking classes, and a class and in classes can have students. So this is there is called a relationship, and there's very different kinds. We're not going to get into that much today. But all you have to know is that in order to connect 2 tables together, they need to have something in common, right? In this case, that something in common is the student ID. And let me highlight this. Okay, I don't know how to highlight. Great. All right, whatever. So the student ID, there you go, is related to, this is how the 2 tables are related. And they can do, you know, they can be, they can be any type of information, but you need some reference point. In this case, the student ID, right? So you have a table, right, with the students, you know, Alfonso, Gianfranco, Charles, and Andy, and they're all attending a class, right, which is computer class, right, or computer club. And so, and therefore, now you can relate all of the information. So you can see that a student belongs to a class and that the class contains many students. So naming conventions for databases are pretty much the same type that we were using or we were learning for C++ or Java, right? Where you use camel case. And camel case is pretty useful for databases because you're going to be using all sorts of fields. You start creating, like I'll show you guys one that I made for work. Oops. Okay. All right. And this is something that I designed for my work, right? And if you go to the databases, like I have a bunch of tables, and here I have many fields in one table, right? Different kinds of information, right? It tracks all sorts of different things. And this is the crazy part. This is how everything is related. So this is the power of a database, right? So this, a client can have projects, can have people, it can have buildings, it can have line items, blah, 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 and so on and so on and so on. And so you can, the limit is only your imagination and organizational skills, right? Because in order to keep track of this, you have to be pretty well organized. So, and the fields also have their own sets of properties, right? They can be text, they can be dates, they can be numbers, they can be a calculation, they can be all sorts of other types. FileMaker, which is what I'm using, is a very basic database. It's very powerful. It's easy to use, and it's not super complex. So I'm not going to show you guys too much of that because this is not what. But the principles are the same, right? And that's basically, right, what you need to know about databases. So databases are, you know, the storage and management of data. That's it, right? They're represented by a symbol that looks like this usually. They have tables, they have fields, and they have logic, right? And like Andy was saying, the logic is the part that you see. Is where you actually are able to, like, I'll show you again on my database, right? Did I lose it again? Yeah. Green. All right. So there we go. So the logic is stuff like this, right? Where, like in this case, you know, I have a button right here that takes me to time cards. Wow, this is an old one, but all of that is driven by little scripts, right? By little things, just like this, right? You do this and follow the steps. And MySQL is no different. It just uses a slightly different language. And we're gonna get to that language, right? So, so we know how to name things. Logic is what connects all of these together into one coherent piece. And the tools to access and work with the data can be anything, right? It can be a web application, it can be JavaScript, it can be C++, Java, or Rust. So it can be any of those, or its own little language, but on terminal. But we're not gonna talk about that just yet. All right, we're more interested. What I want you guys to understand is what a database is, right? So basically, again, just to recap, and then I'll move on, is the storage and management of data in one piece, right?
Hey, Rick.
Yep.
From that example right there, how you have the two tables, because in Java we're covering a chapter is kind of similar to this. Is that what's considered like the class's extension? Because it carries over the same variable information aside whatever's added?
No, so it's very similar, and I made the mistake of thinking that classes are, no. So this is just a class. So this should have been like a school class, right? Not a class, or like not a JavaScript or a C++ class. This is just like yeah, I should have clarified, just like a school class. And
Okay.
so, but tables, right, are not this similar than classes from JavaScript or C++, right? So for instance, and that's like a really, I don't know if they don't do that. Okay. Can you guys see the desktop still? No?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, wait, there we go. Did it change? Okay. So, wait, can you see this or
Yeah,
not? Which screen are you seeing? Sorry, guys. Can
I mean, we
Are
could
you-
pretty much see everything.
light your code or what?
Yep, we see everything you see.
Alrighty. Okay, so you see this right here? There's a class, right? Called Planet. Yeah, you see that?
Yeah, we could see.
All right. So this could be considered a table, but it's not. Don't even though they can do very similar things, they're not the same. Don't confuse them. All right. Don't a table is an entirely different thing. Even though it can do the same things as a class in C++ or JavaScript, right? It's just a container for data. That's it. Class in C++ and JavaScript can contain data, actions, it can contain logic, right? It can contain parameters, it can contain all sorts of other information. So the table is just simply a data container. And again, this was called class simply because I lack of better planning. So apologies for that. All right, so there's some further reading there that you guys have available, that I made available, and now we're getting to the actual what we need to know for class, right? So how do we connect the database to C++? Charles, you Do you have your code by any chance?
Well, you see, this is the PC and I did it on laptop, so I'm sorry. But like, I mean, I remember what I did.
Okay, so that's all good. What we're gonna do, we are going to look at this one example, right? We're just gonna go to this further reading here. And I think it's this one. Now, this one is, oh, wait, hold on, let's double check on the installation here real quick. Okay, there we go, we're done. Before we get to this point, we're gonna double check that this got installed properly. And here we go. So this is installed, right? So once it's installed, you should be able to go to either that address, right? Or that can also be replaced by localhost. Same thing, right? See how it showed up? But this is now running in the computer on a web server in my machine. And what we want to do is this one. We want to go to PHP MyAdmin. We're going to do that. My pass, right? I think that's the one that I use, right? Sure, save it. Okay. Is it just nope. Wait, what does it say? Okay, let's see here. Okay. Sorry, guys, let's see. I don't know why the password isn't working. Yeah, that's fine.
Question, is the password like my pass, but like the capital letter P?
I forgot. No, I think it was my pass, right? Like that.
Yeah,
But this could be maybe something else. This could be root. Let's try that. There we go. That's what it was. So the username is root. Sorry about that. We're gonna annotate the file here that the username is root. And this is where you would design your little, like whatever database, right? So for instance, you know that many of you are building like a sandwich ordering application. And so if you click on databases, you have a bunch of databases, right? There's a test one right there. We're gonna create a new one, really simple. We're gonna name it food ordering. You can do, right? Ordering, okay, create. So now now that you've created a database, right, you're gonna create the tables, right? So the tables would be sandwiches. We're gonna keep it super simple. Number of columns, let's do 5. And then we're gonna do, the first one would be sandwich ID, right? Because we need to keep track of things. Sandwich ID. And this would be a, yeah, it can be a string, and it's a serial number. All right, so this is like slightly different. All right, what we're going to do is okay, so this is change primary. Okay. All right. so this is your primary key, right? This one gets indexed as variable, and we're gonna use the current time because it's unlikely to be something different. Normally you would have to do something else, but I don't know how to do it on this version, so I'll post updated instructions on that. Name, sandwich name, right? And then that's just a variable character. And then you have price, right? And then that would be an integer because we need, and then we have quantity. If we have an inventory, we would want to keep track of how many we have, right? Another integer. Any other fields that you can think of? No?
No.
All right. No?
I don't know.
All right. So length. Okay, so normally this is like sandwich ID. This should be like 6 characters. And then this one, the integers always require the length, right? So we're going to do 6. And this is a variable character, so we don't want any. Fine, 256. Okay, so there's our one table, right? And then let's say that you want options for that table for the sandwiches. So now we're gonna go back here and to the food ordering database. See how the tables are there? We're gonna create a new table and we're gonna call it option. Yeah, menu options, right? And then we're gonna do the same thing. And then there's gonna be option ID. Variable character, we're gonna do 6, and then option name. That's also variable character 256, and then price. It's an integer. We can do 6 and 20. Okay, so I'm really bad at count case myself. All right, there we go. And literally now you need to enter some information, right? Now you can actually start using this the tables, right? The database for something. So we're going to enter some data, right? So we're going to insert, and here sandwich ID. That's super complicated. We're running out of time. Okay, so 10 minutes. Okay, so well, this is how you would do it. Just enter the data, all right, and define some value. In this case, current time. This is time. C time. UC date, UTC date. That's fine. Perfect. Chicken, right? Price $2 and quantity 1. Okay. Data too long for column sandwich ID. All right. So I did that wrong. So we just need to do user. Let's see if that helps. Okay. Well, I made a mistake. So I need to go back to here. We're going to edit the table. This one right here. And we don't need to do that. Let's see, save. Go back to sandwiches. We're gonna insert one. Do that. So we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is chicken. Price $2. Quantity, there's 6 sandwiches. And this is the beautiful part of having this software, right? It gave you the whole SQL statement right here. So this is what you're going to need later on in C or Java. You're going to need to know how to talk to the database. This is how you do it. This is what SQL is. It's called structured query language. And what it does is basically turns, it tries to use everyday language to use the database. In this case, right? Insert into sandwiches, right? Sandwiches being our table. This record, sandwich name, price, quantity. These are the fields, right? The following values, chicken, blah, blah, blah. And it did it. Now, if I go to browse the database, there's my record right here. See? Sandwich ID, chicken. And now you have a way of referencing this data from C++. This is super important, creating an ID for the record. Because if you're bringing it into an array, which you will, you're going to need to know to reference that array. So this is, the professor was, I think this is, we need an entire sort of lesson just for databases, right? So that's why I'm a little rushing a little bit, because there's a lot to learn. And again, Charles did this part. You included some information, right, Charles? I think we're gonna get cut off in a few minutes.
Well, I included MySQL,
Yes, yeah, I forgot.
but
I did
that's
what the,
it. That's only it. That's all I did.
and then did you do the parameters? Did you do any of these?
And yeah, but maybe it didn't work because I didn't really have a database to connect to.
Yes. So if you install Bitnami and then set up your database like we did here, then you would be able to easily replace this right here, right? This information right here, that gets replaced with this information, with that. And now you actually have a connection. And so hey, I mean, if you can connect to the database, if all you can do is connect to the database on your first try or on your first few tries, this class was a success. This little session was a success, because it's freaking hard. It's not easy, So I think, and then basically, you just go from there. You build from there, right? Maybe what we'll do is, since we're gonna run out of time pretty soon, I think that this is really what we should go after, right? This is after we've created, after you've installed the database, created some data, give it some structure, right? Pay attention to these two tables that you're gonna create, the sandwiches and the options, right? Don't make them too big. So make like 6 sandwiches and 4 or 5 options. That's all you want for now. But know that you can have unlimited sandwiches and unlimited options. But if we just work with like 5 or 6, then it's a really good start, because you'll get the concept. And then we'll talk about text files too, right? Because for what we're doing with the professor, this is probably a better way to go. That's just my humble opinion. No, not to I don't want to override the professor in any way, but for what we're doing, for the amount of data that we're using, it would just be easier for us to use a text file. And Giancarlo, do you remember the file I showed you yesterday? Like I saved it, right? So we did something like this. I was talking to Giancarlo. He left. Okay, so how to structure the menu, how to do your functions so that they can be repeatable and reusable, and all this other stuff. So data, if you can get this information into an array, right? Like this information, whether it comes from text or MySQL or whatever, then you're golden. That's it. That's all you need to, that will take you to the next step, right? So I'm gonna, since we're gonna run out of time, I'm gonna list the link again. You guys can just join just for like 5-10 more minutes, and we can talk about it. What the next thing is, because obviously we can't learn all of this tonight, right? But I think it's a good base, and so if everybody's on board and everybody's understanding, or if everybody has questions, just let me know, and we'll tackle those specific problems on the Q&A, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So Charles, does this did it clarify a little bit?
Okay.
Is it clearer now that we worked through it, or still confusing?
Well, I mean, it feels like a whole new world to me. Because like you have this whole database that I don't really know how to use. All I really did is I know how to plug things in
That's-
like SQL and into C++.
But that is the good start. That is a really good start. Just that's all you need to. That's where you need to start, right? So, and then learning how to use this. So I'm guessing, right? So let's like if you come up with a plan of action, it would be to follow these instructions, do the installation, create your first database, and then next week or the week after that, I can create another link and we can actually make this connection. Make the connection and create our first record using C++. If that it's okay with everybody. And yeah. And if you guys want to do the really hard installation of this, you can do, yeah, it's just a lotion. You can do this one. This is a really detailed, install on Linux, but it's much harder to do than if you just follow these instructions and get to the PHPMyAdmin. That'll just get you started, and that's really it. Alfonso, you could or you could not? Sorry, didn't. You could. Okay. All right, great. So if you, yeah, were you able to install it?